Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham and such. So, another video. Just trying to get to the subject, which is I'm right, and you're wrong. If you're a believer in something else besides what I'm saying. So, if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Because I'm right. Yeah, that's so no, that's really not the story. But anyway, the whole idea is to put certain notions or ideas or statements about reality on trial, and the biggest one you can put on trial is the efficacy of existence as a conscious, sentient, biological, evolved organism. Because yes, the design is, we're not invented to be productive. We're invented to be a selfish DNA virus, whatever the word for that, infectoid. And that's pretty much it, is to just propagate a DNA molecule. And all of this crap is just carrying the seed of that molecule, and that's it's all contrived for that silly purpose. And the argument is that that contrivance by nature wasn't some kind of happy accident. It's a frickin' disaster. And there's just not a good word for the type of disaster in terms of not profitable, unprofitable. Unprofitable doesn't say anything, right? It doesn't imply the deficit that this mistake, of the function and the function of the universe, this error code produced in terms of all of the terrible, awful torment and torture that has been experienced. And again, I can try to describe, and there's just no point. It's like describing the ocean as molecules of water, and it's just like, well, how do I even create an idea of the magnitude of the number, the amount of really bad crap that has been experienced as an event, in the history of neurologically capable organisms. So everything has to be qualified. So you say neurologically capable, and you say, well, okay, it's not all neurology. I mean, the first neuron wasn't an ouch. It took a while to make one, to synthesize this complex phenomenon of reflexive little triggers in a brain that create the illusion, of offensive sensation. But we're doing it, so there's no doubt about the fact that nature could make one. It's making machines that can feel, no doubt about it. Frankly, I'm doing it, and it's, yeah, I know my brain is doing it, it's not, it's not channeling feeling juice or something. There's not some whatever it would be, some sort of magic ton that makes something go, oh, that's unpleasant. No, it's just a function of a complex network of bullshit inside the brain that not only is processing what it sees and creating sentences and organizing concepts and words, but it's producing I feel. And frankly, the argument is that we feel less than good in sort of dramatic ways, way too much to justify the trivial amount of gratification we gain from our little victories. I could argue today I did a lot of work, cutting trees and painting houses and all kinds of, kind of work I used to do. And it was gratifying, in some sort of ego, emotional way to do the work and do it really efficiently and really cheaply and really well, frankly. And, but is that worth what? What kind of misery would I put on the table and say, okay, give me that misery for that event? And I'd say, no, I already paid for it, right? I'm tired and it was work. I already, just that was enough. The tedium and the, physical, aches and pains, I already paid too much. And I'm tired. Since I'm really, frankly, too old for that shit. But anyway, what does that have to do with the video? Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, so let's just play a video and do what we're supposed to do here, which is create a summary of the actual video. Yeah, another version of it. Okay, triggered by the other video. So I think it was a pretty good video, frankly. You have to go to the website and watch it because, yes, YouTube is evil and we shouldn't become totally dependent on YouTube to, house and store our relevancy, our reality, because it's an evil capitalist company that just gives a shit about manipulating money out of your pockets. Yes, featuring me. Again, okay, so yes, I am featured. But it's irrelevant, frankly. The arguments are the part that's important. I wish I could make those arguments in some sort of way that would make me even less relevant, but I really don't know how to be a drone or an I don't know how to be something other than me. I mean, I could try to fake it or something, but it's like me wearing a suit and a tie. It just doesn't really work. But anyway, let's play along. Your sneezes. Yeah, so just talking about, these little moments of reboot and refreshment and taking a bath or something, where you feel revived or clean or good. There are tiny little bits in your life, and most of your life isn't that. It's, you see people, old people like me, you see people as they're getting older and they get crickier and crickier, and you see some of these old guys and they never can lift their head again, because they've just spent so much time getting, brutalized by reality. Eek. And to force it on them. That's not your territory. So it's just about the rudeness of the imposition part. So it's this whole argument about what the real story is. If you're going to say you have confidence that life is a good thing and it's a gift and it's, it's worth it. Your torture is worth somebody else's pleasure. You really have to make sure you're really right. And people haven't made sure they're right. And you really have to explain kind of what your insurance policy is against the fact that you should be suable for a transgression if your little fantasy doesn't turn out the way you intended, and the person created feels trespassed and aggrieved by being farted in a filthy nest and living a a harsh existence, struggling to breathe. Anyway, yeah, pretty much. So anyway, the video is basically at the end. I get to the trial part, okay, but it's basically a description of the fact that this isn't that complicated, right? There's physics and chemistry and biology, And then there's the subject of value, you know, which is made obvious to anybody who's conscious, in the sense that there's obvious value to your condition. You know, whether you feel good or you feel bad, it's easy to categorize those feelings as good and bad. And that's essentially the core of all value in the universe, is what are the feeling things doing? Because that's the only thing that can have value. That's the only thing that it's synthesized it. There is no value until you synthesize its its creation by making something that can feel. Without something that can feel, there can't be value in a universe. Not anything logical or cognizable. Cognizable is an interesting word. Is the most important subject. I mean, getting, accurately describing the redness of something. So I could talk about almost any subject, and the only way it could possibly be meaningful or relevant is because it somehow will affect how people feel, or how animals feel, or how something feeling that can manifest a feeling feels. And so all value is related to the state of mind, okay, of a feeling thing. And if it isn't affecting the state of mind of any feeling thing, then it can't possibly be value relevant. Not going to argue it's an obvious fact, but it's just unfortunate that people aren't educated to think about their existence. Like, you don't go to a class in high school or even grammar school talking about what it's like to be alive. That class doesn't exist. But there should be one. There should be, from your early maturation, there should be conversation about the meaning of your existence. And it shouldn't be in the context of what church do you go to. It should be a real conversation about what is a reasonable conclusion to draw about what your function is. And get to the real ethics kind of subjects. I mean, what's the word for that? Not humanities, but there's some other word for the political construct that they actually did teach some of that in school. But just the reality that your existence is just going to have, all there is how do you feel, and how do the things you interacted with in the earth, how do they feel? How's the future impacted by your existence? Do more things feel better, or do things feel worse? And because of your presence. And that's a state of mind, or a consciousness position that people should be in a lot in their life, considering what exactly what is my action going to produce as an effect. What am I causing as I deterministically, function in this cause and effect universe? Risk, because again, we're back to the imposition. Right, so imposition's the key part of the, the argument should be over, even if we're going to argue that we don't agree and that you have some position that says life makes sense and it does something useful. You can't say it with enough confidence to impose it. You just can't. So, and you can't buy insurance against the person you run over, so to speak. I mean, you can't get a legitimate environmental impact statement thing here. You can't get approval for this in any kind of rational court. Because the fact is, it's dangerous and toxic if it goes wrong. and you don't have a right to allow that to happen, and you have absolutely no argument you can make, the reasonable argument stating you're immune to a mistake. You're immune to having a kid who won't be full of some notion that life is fun. Conscious beings. And that's all you can really argue. There's no other part of it that matters except figuring out, did you create a victim? Yes. So I've just said that basically. But it's really not part of common human contemplation, is this understanding that you're in a game, a big complicated game, and a lot of things that are of equal value to yourself are involved, and it's just a fact that it's possible for you to do things inadvertently that essentially be the same as throwing banana peels on the sidewalk and disabling people and ruining their life, blah blah blah. You have the power, the capability of making things much better or making things much worse. Have some sense of some purpose built into existence, even though it can be scientifically explained that there's just no reason, no logic. Right, so I don't know exactly what I was saying about that purpose argument, but yes, it's always contrived, delusional nonsense, because there's just no logic to defend it. That's not how we were, that's not a part of our creation, was not solving some problem. We're the creation of the problem. We need a solution. We aren't the solution. At a pretty high level, considering their brain is about a trillion, really. It's just talking about how our evolution and this notion that people have that our bigger brain made the difference, and it's really just about vocabulary. It's about how the brain is oriented, and then you can just look at something obvious in biology, which is, of all the mammals, we are the slowest to maturate. I mean, we're born after a very long gestation, and even after that long gestation, we don't function at all, barely. I mean, barely can, the minimum, just the barest of minimums. And there's just absolutely almost no function for a couple of years. It's just mush, where obviously other mammals are engaged, the eyes are open, they're becoming fully whatever they are, cat, dog, monkey, gorilla, chimpanzee. 6 months, they're already one, where a human is lost in yeah. And that's all part of, I would argue, that's what made us smart, not a bigger brain, a brain that's organized completely different in terms of it's obsessed with developing this capacity to do the conceptual language thing, identify the world with these sounds and have words to describe their reality. That's the difference. You don't need a bigger brain for that. You need one with a different operating system. Because that's how we evolved into machines that can gain high efficiency if they can do this interacting and communicating thing. So I'm just saying more about that subject, so I didn't spend that much time on it, but it seems I jumped to it more than once. Oblige them to be focused on something that will keep them from becoming a drunk or something. They need some. So I was just talking about the reason why people have kids, and they're all negative reasons. They're all part of their psychological problem, all right? And they think they're going to solve some personal problem by imposing the problem of gaining some reasonable sense of purpose and satisfaction in existing, when it's very difficult to exist in some kind of I win, you win way. Life isn't easily played as a win-win game. You usually got to be a bit of a taker to come out of it better off. You know, through this process of billions of interactions inside of your body, the fact is you do produce. So again, another anti-nihilist argument, just pointing out that your consciousness, obviously this brain is producing, okay, this identity and this fact that you have a state, a welfare, a condition that can be felt as either good or bad. The feelings themselves are innately good or bad. You're a value engine. Your brain synthesizes something that didn't exist in the universe. Value. It synthesized it. It made something. It made the idea of meaningful value. I mean, you could say that you could play a game and you could win or lose. And so you could have a game played in the universe, and there's obviously some side wins, one side loses. And you could argue, well, what side should win? Okay, and if it wasn't for the existence of feelings, or something being harmed or hurt, or something feeling good, something feeling bad, some kind of apportionment of some sort of value, there'd be no way to say. So I guess you could say, probably a better example is you could put a puzzle together, and you could put it together right, or you could put it together wrong. Well, if the universe put it together wrong, you'd have to have a hard time explaining how that means anything. You know, what's the tragedy? Oh, you put it together wrong. Besides violating the rules that it should be put together a certain way. So it's hard to contrive any meaning to that value. And so, in a sense, evolution was trying to get you to put the puzzle together the right way. That is, put food in your mouth and whatever. Don't eat your own poo and that kind of crap. And so to do that, it created this idea of reward and punishment, so it could manipulate your behavior and oblige you to do the things that evolution, that through the process of evolution will be found to be beneficial to the propagation of your eggs, so to speak. Well, we don't build nests. We just lay eggs, frankly. People don't responsibly have kids. They en masse irresponsibly have them. And obviously that's part of this subject. Unfortunately, the stupid people aren't going to watch this video. And so that's sort of the, oh shit, it's the wrong audience. And it's just events in the brain, and but they're significant. You can't, like I said, you can just say, okay, your brain it's an illusion. Feelings, you could call it that, but as Einstein would say about time, it's one hell of an illusion. So there's no point in calling it an illusion, because it's just too frickin' real, especially when you're participating in experiencing it. You will never, nobody will ever provide evidence that convinces me it doesn't matter whether I feel good or I feel bad. It matters. Trying to find the golden goose. We have to turn it into some adventure. Right, so that's just how we're manipulated. Everything's turned into an adventure. We need to solve a problem. Our biology is constantly creating deprivations and necessities to act and to feel better, and that's all we're trying to do, is to, in some net ultimate way, feel better. avoid feeling worse. Want it to be true, it's just a fact. That's what it comes with. So you can't support certain things without supporting what comes with them. And okay, right. So you can't, like I said, you can't support procreation by saying, well, look, that person had a kid and the kid was happy to be alive and everything went very well. And they died peacefully in their sleep, blah, 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 blah. And say, there, that's the story. No, that's not the story. Because what comes with the act is the likelihood that it isn't going to be perfect, and it's not going to be happily ever after, and none of that's going to take place, and it's going to be some potentially profoundly lesser outcome. Clearly, because it's really, really, really bad. Okay, so you're just trying to emphasize that you can sit there and play games with this, how much pain is worth what gain, but to presume that it's going to tell somebody else what their pain is worth is just so obnoxious. So death isn't a bad thing. It's dying that sucks. And so yeah, I was using the fact that you go to sleep every night and most of that time you're dead. Your brain isn't doing anything. You're not consciously involved anymore. There's nothing at stake. You're not. You're just not. But yeah, some of the time you're dreaming, and for me, that's pretty much as real as reality. You definitely have feelings. You definitely, it's it's a struggle, like life. And so, in my opinion, that function only exists because it's practice. Your brain is giving you some practice while it's doing its downtime thing and keeping you out of harm's way. Because if you were awake all the time, you'd probably get into trouble at night. So it's best just to keep you out of that blind state and disable you. But you might as well gain some knowledge while you're disabled, and so it gives you some practice in defeating some monster or some problem. And it wants to be original, and so it makes something kind of bizarre. Are going to get horribly murdered. And to say, oh yeah, it'll be worth it. The one lion that'll survive to... I've made this argument so many times, but I don't think if most people thought about it and thought about would they want to live a life where they watched half their kids die, or would they want to have their pet if they had to kill 10 puppies to have it. Brutally kill them in some horrible way. Would they be willing to press the yes, go ahead, kill 10 puppies so I can have my little dog to comfort me? And again, I'm pragmatically, in the circumstances that exist, I'm not saying you should deny yourselves your association with the animal kingdom in the form of living with a pet. But it's just an absolute fact that they're just a slave to your emotional need. And the fact is that, too many times, too much of the animal's welfare is compromised in its creation, certainly, the 10 dead puppies, and, in the fact that people cling and end up, imposing really horrible... I mean, we can't give animals just the right amount of painkiller. It's just not possible. So, every surgery might involve an awful lot of pretty extreme unpleasantness. And so that's already a win. So even if they won't call themselves antinatalists, or they won't call them. So I pointed this out before. There's just most people are behaving. Most educated humans are behaving as if they were extinctionists. Okay, in the sense that they either are having no kids or they're having insufficient to maintain replacement population. So in that sense, we've won the argument among people of reasonable education, and that's a meaningful fact in the sense that without the argument even being broadcast on the news, okay, or being anywhere accessible except in obscure writings of Schopenhauer and some other people, we're already won a substantial key victory, in the sense that intelligence recognizes reason to have pause and to be very careful about creating things, especially things that can feel and be harmed. So most intelligent people take it seriously, and the fact is the only real problem here is that most people aren't intelligent, and most people on Earth are undereducated and being produced by the undereducated. And that's a problem. Religion and ignorance, they're kind of the same thing. That's the thing that needs to be fought. I mean, that's why, Do Not God is the channel name. Anyway, who just keep recklessly creating a mess, and so it's recklessness breeds reckless people. I mean, obviously you see what's parents doing a pretty poor job. You see the people they create, okay? So, and you know that there's a pretty high correlation between parents that are under-concerned about their role in creating and modeling, molding a human being, and the fact that somebody becomes a drunk driver or a speeder or some other menace to the peace. I'll be back. All right, back. I mean, I can't even imagine, frankly. I mean, just because, you grow up in a class, okay? So I grew up middle class, and, it would just be, nobody would think of the whole boombox thing or some kind of, being obnoxious overtly. Just, because people were conscious of imposing on each other in some rude and obnoxious way. And it's just kind of, like the whole neighborhood doesn't want to hear your arguments kind of thing. Them die. Badly. Slowly. Right, so I'm back to the, for most of human existence, human beings have had, an average of, 8 to 10, 12 kids, and they had to watch most of them die. That's most of human history. I can't justify a week of that. So again, we're just back to the argument. I mean, maybe you can defend your existence by saying you're worth killing 5 kids for. Give 5 kids cancer for your existence. No, I'm not even close to saying that. To thinking that could be true, or to thinking that even if you promised me utopia, a perfect existence, that I'd take the bargain, because I wouldn't. Just nasty horror, way too much of it. So again, yes, it's not a single player game. It's too expensive, and it's not your money. Yeah, not complicated, really. But yes, you got to make all these videos. But mostly because there's such a difficult time in composing a rational argument that works on stupid. Because stupid resists reason and logic. So that's sort of the mistake. But it's also impossible to say, okay, I'm going to try to tell the truth by, you know, making up a fake story, you know, that entertains the moron, but has the theme in it somewhere. Fuck that. That ends up being sort of like sci-fi's become, you know, because it has all of these. You can't find a sci-fi movie anymore that, you know, doesn't have this stupid time travel crap in it, and, you know, just silly themes that are just like, well, fuck that. You know, you're so broken physical reality that what's the point? Frankly, that there's so many people on this planet. Yes, I was just marveling at how, you know, people complain about my redundancy and different things, and it's like, well, you know, how much of this is there actually being produced? I mean, there's billions of human beings. How many human beings are making a video comparable to this one? I mean, you know, the number's just not that big. So in a world where this is such rare content, you really shouldn't complain that it's a little bit flawed and, you know, I mean, I can't even call redundant actually being a flaw, just because obviously you have to keep telling people stupid stuff because they just keep doing it over and over again. So you have to keep saying, you know, if everybody was running off the cliff, would you run off the cliff? You know, that kind of thing. You know, we don't need the whole. We don't need all the pixels to enjoy the movie, kind of thing. So that was just another personal observation, just about how, you know, even characters like South Park can become real people, even though they're only you know, the tiniest of bare minimal abstraction. But anyway, so you know, I think it was a pretty good video considering, you know, yeah, considering I am really tired. But anyway, and such and so forth and whatnot. So we'll call that a video. And I know there wasn't a whole bunch in there about a trial, but that's the whole idea, is that basically I'm an advocate, a lawyer. I had to be the detective, and I also had to be the technician, you know, who sampled the DNA or something. You know, it's like you have to do all the jobs, because you can't depend on anybody in the system to be able to do any of this stuff reasonably. It's all corrupted by traditional fables. And so everybody, almost every person has some totem pole in their frickin' head that you have to get them undistracted by, because they keep trying to look at the world through the totem pole. And you can't see it that way. Alright, so enough of a video. So till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. And thanks for watching, I guess. I should thank you. Appreciate any support you can offer. Wish I would be more. I wish I could achieve a notion inside of you of great confidence that I am so proficient at doing this that everything will be solved. I wish I could give you that feeling, but you know, it's not likely. It's a tough job, and I'm underskilled, just a fact. And so it's not going to be a perfect painting, but I keep working at it, and so that's the best I can do. Till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot.